Welcome to the Celebration of You. I'm your host, Holly Dowling. I'm thrilled to share with you incredible people from all over the world who are living and leading extraordinary lives. From overcoming immense adversity to discovering the secret sauce to leading with courage and grace. Their stories are going to bring you hope and inspiration. Now let the stories begin. Oh boy, if you are listening to today's podcast, and I know a lot of you do this you save it for, you're going to have it over your lunch hour, or you wait till your drive home, or you do it when you're listening when you're going to take a run. I think you should prepare yourself, because I, myself, am just dying and biting at the chop right now, because I am getting to meet this person and have had an opportunity to talk to Sam a little bit, and in a short amount of time, realizing the most amazing human being and man that I've had the opportunity to interview in a very long time. And Sam Vaghar, I want to thank you for being here. And I don't even know where to begin, my friend. Hi.
Hi, Holly. How are you?
I'm great. How was that for an introduction?
That was very flattering. I really appreciate it. And really honored to be with you.
Well, you are... really, Sam, I started learning more about you. You know, I was highly recommended. We were connected via another dear friend of both of ours. And the more I learned about you, I'm like, Sam, how is it possible that a human being has done as much as you have at such a young age? So I'm going to just start this off with saying, by the way, I want everybody to know that Sam was, before you even know what he does, Sam was selected in 2012 to the list of the top 99, are you ready, people? 99 most influential foreign policy leaders under the age of 33. Now, by the way, at the time, I just calculated it, Sam, you were barely 25.
Sounds right, yeah.
Oh, all right. So where do we tell us all about you? I want to know, let's start with what you're doing right now, and then we'll take the journey going backwards. But tell us all about what you're doing right now and what you're passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. And I'm doing two things primarily. One is I head an organization called MCN, Millennium Campus Network, and we're convening and training the next generation of social impact leaders on university campuses around the world. So really passionate about youth leadership development, activating young people, and really cultivating a generation of leaders who are more ethical, effective, and engaged. I think it's really what the world needs right now, more than ever. And I'm also now one of 12 people around the world appointed to advise the executive director of UN Women for a 2-year term for the next 2 years, which is a tremendous honor and something that is very close to my heart. So those are two things that definitely keep me very busy every day.
Well, and just knowing that you're all over the world, most of your time, I know you're home, you're in Boston, but you do spend a tremendous amount of time traveling because of what you're doing to serve in such huge capacity. So I'm so excited about what you're doing with UN Women because of my work with Girl Up. But I would like to know, tell us about the Millennium Campus Network. Tell us more about that, and what was the driving passion that made Sam get involved in that? Tell us the why.
Yeah, the why, it was very simple. I read 2 books.
I love that.
It was really that simple. And, I had actually, ahead of this interview, I watched your talk at the Girl Up Leadership Summit last year. And there was something that stuck out that you shared that I want to share back. And you said, it takes one person that's willing to do one thing that can have a global impact. And I think for a lot of people, a lot of listeners, and myself included, before I was 19, I would have said, well, I don't know if that's true. But I've lived it, and I've seen that and experienced it. And what happened was I read these 2 books. One was Mountains Beyond Mountains, about a doctor named Paul Farmer and organization Partners in Health. And then a second book, The End of Poverty, by this economist, Jeffrey Sachs. And when I read these 2 books, I learned that 1.2 billion people are living on less than $1.25 a day, but also that there are clear pathways for us to have impact as citizens. And so at 19, I put down the books, I picked up the phone, I cold called this world famous economist, Jeffrey Sachs, Went down to Columbia University 2 days later, met with his team. I said, look, I'm a sophomore in college. I don't have many of the answers, but I know our generation can do more. And I want to figure out what role we might play in advancing the Millennium Development Goals of the United Nations. Came back to campus, started small-scale fundraisers on public health initiatives. And in 2007, we convened student groups from all over Boston, and we said, look, we're all focused on social impact, but we're doing this work in silos. Those silos minimize impact and diffusion of knowledge. What would happen if we teamed up? 6 months later, we had our first Millennium Campus Conference at MIT. Wow. 1,000 student leaders showed up from around the world, with Paul Farmer, Jeff Sachs, a little-known singer named John Legend, the head of USAID. Paul, Jeff, and John joined our board of advisors and said, let's go build this out. And I said, I'm 20. I don't know what this is. But I said, yeah, let's give it a shot. And so we've been on close to a decade-long journey, really convening this next generation of leaders who are going out there and making big difference on some of the world's biggest challenges.
I'm in awe right now. If you could see me, my face, my eyes are closed. This is what happens to me, Sam. And I'm just sitting here with my jaw dropped. I'm like, you did this. And at 19, you got the, shall we call the call from above or from within, right? Your heart. It was the mind and the heart saying there has to be something. What did they do? Take us back to that moment when you walked in and you said, we have to do something. Were they looking at you like, where did you just come from? What, like, you was kind of like open arms, but what was that reaction like immediately when you walked in?
To be honest, if I'm being really honest,
yeah.
So I cold called Jeff and probably 9 or 10 of his colleagues, and 3 of them took meetings with me. One of them almost made me cry. I remember leaving the meeting because the person was really tough on me and said, well, come on, basically made me think I didn't really know that much at all. But I think that's the point, is that all it takes is one person to believe in you and say that your voice matters. And just having, a couple people on his team say, hey, your voice matters. And then having Jeff himself say your voice matters. That was enough. And so I was able to kind of push aside a lot of people saying no. And even at the United Nations itself, the UN gave us our seed funding. And I'll never forget, we went there 4 times to ask for funding to build out MCN, to build this network. And the first 3 times I went, they said, no, we're not interested. People pitch us every day to activate young people. And I went back this 4th time and I showed this budget to Anita Sharma, and I was hoping for $3,000 or $4,000. And she looked down at the budget. She looked back up at me and she said, Sam, how about $20,000 to $30,000? And I said, 30,000 sounds great. And that was our first grant. So wow. Perseverance pays off.
Doesn't it? And you know what? Thank you for being so real and being authentic and saying, if I'm going to be honest, I left there in tears. And if you think about that turning point in your life at 19 years old, if you had let that experience shut you down, I can't even imagine what this world would be like right now without you. And it is perseverance, right? It's like I have a mantra that I live by that you'll love. It's tell me no, watch me go. Because I don't know if this comes from what we just found out about each other is we're both half Persian. I'm like, maybe that comes from that part of us. But it's like the more people tell you no, the more fuel it gave me. And it sounds like for you. So from that moment, this is fascinating. Take us to today, the impact that MCN has had globally. What's your greatest success? What's happening with it now? Tell us how huge this is now.
Yeah, so we've worked so far directly with 5,500 undergraduates from 300 universities around the world. 83% of our alums are now in social impact careers. And more than 6 in 10 say that our programs definitively prepared them for success in that work. So we have alums who are working at the United Nations, at USAID, alums who have started their own social enterprises. One of them was just named the 2017 Schwab Foundation Social Entrepreneur of the Year, I think at 28 years old.
Wow.
And to give you one story, Nisha McCrae, she's a 2014 graduate of MIT. had job offers from Google and Facebook, and turned them down to become a social entrepreneur and follow her passion and her path. And the reason why was she came to our conference in 2011, gained inspiration, gained a mentor, came through our fellowship program in 2013 in its inaugural year. And in that program, built out her business plan, built out her executive team. She'd had some tension with the team, was able to resolve it, leveraged $7,000 from our partners to continue her work full time, and used her engineering prowess. So created a do-it-yourself solar power USB charger for mobile devices that takes 1 hour to build. She brings that to teens in Cape Town, South Africa, and here in Boston. They build it, and then she invites the teens to bring their own ideas to pitch competitions. And, a huge challenge in South Africa is youth unemployment. Tapping into young people's entrepreneurial ability is so key in those formative years. And she's done these workshops so far with 1,000 youth. So that's just one story of 5,500. But I think is a testament to the power of this generation and what we're capable of. And I think even more effective at when we work together. That story is amazing. And that's one of the over 5,000, like you just said. Just one, Sam. I'm just in awe right now. All right. So, okay. I don't even know where to go now because I have all these things I want to ask you. So take us to, what would you like? This is usually what I would do at the end, but I want to do it right now. What would you like for people listening to this? If they have somebody that's, a millennial or somebody that's not, and like me, that's not, I'm older, but what can we do? What would your ask be of us to keep this going and to keep it viral? What do you need from us? Yeah, I would say if there are listeners that have college students in their lives, they can definitely, follow us on social media at MCN Partners, or check out mcnpartners.org. But the best thing I could advise is that if there's a listener out there with someone college aged who's already making a difference, looking to do that work better, or looking to get involved, reach out to me directly, whether it's over email or through Facebook, just Sam Namat Vaghar. I would love to connect with them and put them in touch with our team and involve them in our community. They'd be invited to our big conference, which we do once a year, which we've done at MIT and Harvard and at the UN. And this year it'll be in Morocco in November. And then our fellowship program, which we're scaling up to universities across the country and globe to really help them take their next steps into a career in social impact. Okay, I think you gave us a nice list. Here's what we can do. And at the end of the day, actually just making yourself available and saying, just reach out to me. Go to Sam on Facebook. I mean, the impact, it's viral and it's making a difference and it's working. And the more people that we can help make a difference for, right? Like this is huge. And let's face it, it's the next leaders. Well, already you're a leader. It's the next leaders. It's the future of our country, which takes me to, I have to ask you about this. So when I read this and found this out about you, I know you've had some incredible speaking opportunities all over the world in Bosnia, but I want to know about when you were asked to meet with President Obama at the White House. Tell us about that experience. I mean, how many people under 30 get to do that? Right? It was pretty special. So I can share a little bit of the backstory on that, which was that in 2010, I was at a conference in Miami, CGIU, and there was an actor there, Cal Penn, and Cal had left Hollywood for a little while to work for President Obama on youth engagement. And he was getting ready to go up on stage and give a talk, and everybody else was too afraid to go say hi. But the best advice I've received in 30 years was actually from a homeless man who taught me. He said, I asked him, how does he survive? And he said, I'm not afraid to talk to anyone. I'm not afraid to look up at those above me and ask for help. Never be afraid to talk to anyone. Oh. And so that advice, never be afraid to talk to anyone, I took to heart. So when I saw Cal, I went right up to him. I said, hi, I'm Sam from Boston. I head MCN. We're convening this next generation of social impact leaders, and I'd love to connect. And so he gave me his card. He said, hey, if you want to come to the White House and talk further about it, please do. And so I reached out right away. I've learned all these little tips in this decade, but one thing is, when you get somebody's card, to follow up right away, because I'm sure Cal meets a lot of people, but I followed up within 24 hours. And then I learned a tip from another friend, Ron Cordes of the Cordes Foundation, who taught me in any meeting to always ask, how can I help you? And so for 10 months, I kept reaching out to Cal and I kept saying, how can I help you? Is there anything you're working on at the White House that you need help with? And, he'd respond, no, we're all set. We have it all figured out. And after 10 months, I reached out again and he said, well, actually, we're convening young people around the country for youth roundtables. We want to know what young Americans care most about. And so we organized through MCN roundtables around the country on global development, on pressing global issues. And so 3 weeks later, Cal said, well, would you like to come to the White House for a debrief? And so we went in, and there were just 13 youth leaders representing all the major issues of the day. And we went into the Roosevelt room, and so Valerie Jarrett's there, President Obama's senior advisor. And we sit around this table. The Roosevelt room is just one table. And about halfway through the meeting, Cal says, I have to leave. I'll be right back. And so he leaves, and Holly, it's hard to even imagine, but literally 5 minutes later, the wall opens up. And
seriously?
So
the wall just opened.
Yeah. The wall opens. And so we all stop talking and we look at each other and we're kind of perplexed. We look up and in comes Bo Obama. The dog comes bounding in, and right behind Bo, in comes Barack Obama, and he says, "Hi, I'm Barack Obama." And we're like, "Yeah, we know who you are." so he comes in, and this lesson that I always learned from some of my mentors is to always come prepared with any meeting. Know what you want out of the meeting. So we came with handwritten notes for the president and first lady. So when he came around to shake our hands, I shook his hand. I said, "Hi, I'm Sam from Boston." And then I pulled these cards out of my pocket and put them in his left hand. And he looked down kind of shocked. I don't know how Secret Service felt about it, but again, never be afraid to talk to anyone, and you got to make the most of every opportunity. So he sat down across the table from me, and he talked for about 10, 15 minutes about the power of this generation, about how it's so important to get involved, especially when you're younger, not to wait until you're 80, 90, 100 to give back, but do it as soon as possible and get started right now. And so it was really affirming, but I could tell about 15 minutes in, he had to get ready to go because he was pointing to us. He was saying, thank you, thank you. So I could tell, he's a pretty busy person. So I had to do something. And so I raised my hand. And so everyone's looking at me. It's maybe a little bit rude, but I just had to do it. So I raised my hand, and so I'm right in front of him. So he's like, "Oh, yeah, Sam, go ahead." So I said, "Thank you, Mr. President." And I said to him, "There's invitation in these cards, that I handed to you earlier to get involved in the work we're doing." And so everybody's laughing because I'm pitching the president in front of the whole room. And then I told him that, his leadership is a bold statement. And, when I was growing up, if you had told me when I was 10 years old that someone named Barack Hussein Obama would be president of the United States, I would not have believed you. And so I said, his leadership is a bold statement to me and our generation, and really express gratitude to him. And a month later, the State Department called and asked me if I would share our work and our story and best practices with youth leaders in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We did that in 2011, Morocco in 2013, Bulgaria and Macedonia in 2015. And so, these world travels through the State Department, meeting with President Obama, connecting with Cal Penn. Honestly, most of it, almost all of it, is thanks to meeting one homeless man who taught me to never be afraid to talk to anyone.
Do you know that is what I'm loving the most? Seriously, Sam, I mean, I think that right now you have so much wisdom and these like golden nuggets of goodness. And I'm going to say goodness even more so than greatness that are just coming out of you. And it's all because you've been willing to be, I'm going to say this, you've been willing to be a servant of something you believe in. And you're so humble, and but you've taken this advice. I love it. The best advice I ever got was from the homeless man. And there you sat with the president and were able to have a great conversation. And look who called and asked you to come do more a month later, right? And
exactly.
Right. And never be afraid to talk to anybody. I mean, I hope people listening, I'm writing this stuff down because I'm going to tell you something. I don't care how old you are. I love that Sam is passionate about the millennium and this younger generation. But let me tell you something, listeners. If you're 50, 60, 70, 20, 40, whatever age you are, 30, I don't believe you're never too old and it's never too late to step up and go live your life you've dreamed of. And part of living that life you've dreamed of is giving back and finding a way to make our world a better place. And Sam, your wisdom, it's apropos no matter how old you are. You just reminded us of some of the most simple things. It's really common sense, but it's not common practice. Wouldn't you agree?
That's a really powerful way of putting it. And yeah, I think, to be honest, to any listener, what I've found through this work is it is an intergenerational movement. It's going to take all of us chipping in, playing our role. And for my generation, we need mentors. We need mentorship. We're looking for that guidance. And so it does take all of us.
Mm-hmm. It really does. And I have to ask you, so take us back, because I mean, I'm sitting here thinking your parents must be so proud. I'm just sitting there thinking, wow, right? Like, it's like every parent's proud, but like they have to be just like, wow, had we ever imagined that our son who came into this world would be making such a difference in it, such an incredible impact at a young age. But when you think about as a little boy, and you made that comment at 10 years old, like, was there anything really pivotal in your younger years other than the story at 19? But take us back to being a young boy. Was there anything really pivotal for you that you feel was really instrumental in creating who you are in this passion to make a difference globally?
That's a great question. I don't know that anyone's asked me that, actually. Wow. I
like being the first one. I'm the other homeless person in your life. Okay.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, I think it's been a couple of things that have enabled me to do this work and become the person I am, and I'm still becoming. One is that I think it's my own parents, the example that they set. They came from Iran and England, and so two different cultures, two different geographies, two different faiths. It's, to me, the ultimate example of true love. And I think I learned a lot just by seeing how they treated each other and then how they treat me. They always put my brother and I first. And I think that kind of unconditional and selfless love was really powerful to not only witness, but experience and still experience. And so that was really, I think, an important part of who I am. And same with my family as a whole, my brother, our dog growing up, everybody. But then also, I think there were a couple of experiences. One was being at 11, or maybe it was a couple of years after, even being in Cuba. And that was pretty eye-opening to be in Cuba, and some kids actually pickpocketed me. And they took all my money. But instead of being upset about that, it made me actually start to understand poverty and injustice, because they took a big risk in doing that. There were soldiers, security with big guns on every street corner. And the fact that they were willing to take that chance taught me a lot about kind of where the state of the world as it really is today. And then I had a teacher in 5th grade who looked at me and a friend and said, "Hey, one day you two are going to be United States senators."
Really?
And I still remember it vividly. And I think that says a lot about him as a teacher. But again, I was just another student like any other student. And so to have a teacher believe in you like that, I think is really empowering. And especially because once I got to high school, I was actually really shy. I was really shy growing up, more introverted, and I didn't have many friends. And I think I had just a couple of friends, and I had one date all 4 years of high school. So I didn't really fit in. And I think so it was, that kind of advice and support along the way that helped me overcome some adversity when I was more of an outsider looking in, to really say, hey, I do belong. And it just took reading a couple books to, again, find my place and purpose. And then I think grow up in the process.
Oh, I have to ask you this, that fifth grade teacher, have you stayed in touch with that person?
So it's funny. We actually emailed, I think it was 2 years ago. We hadn't talked for obviously, almost a couple decades, but we reconnected and, he's, and I told him the impact that he had on my life. And, it's just one of those teachers who was always smiling, enthusiastic, and loved the work. They're those people who, when they show up to work, you can just tell they love it. And people feed off that energy. And I certainly did as just one of his students. And I think that helped propel me to do this work today.
Well, I love the fact that, number one, you did reconnect, and I'm going to tell you why. It's unbelievable the timing that you and I are talking today. So April is very important to me. I do a challenge every year for people, and I call it April Appreciation Month. And I'll pick 1 week in the month where for 7 days straight, I ask people, and I do it myself, without telling anybody, let someone know in your life, or many someones, how much you appreciate them and why they've made a difference in your life and the impact they made. I said, I feel like our world, we move so fast that we forget to take the time to recognize and appreciate the people in our life that have been there for us. And many times these are people that go back to our childhood. And so the fact that you said you reconnected 2 years ago, I was going to ask you to take the challenge. I still am, because I can already tell and you don't forget anybody, Sam. You can tell just the way you choose to live your life. You appreciate every person that you've been able to grow or learn. And, that is so important. And when that fifth grade teacher gets to hear from someone like you, because that person's loving what they're doing, right? And the joy, it sounds like that person showed up every day with joy, but to hear from someone that was in their life so many years back and what you're doing with yours. I always tell people, you just trust when I say the gift you will give the receiver will blow your mind, and don't be surprised. I mean, write them a letter. I always love handwritten letters, by the way. I think that's still so important, but even send an email or make a phone call, find them on Facebook, somehow let somebody know, because just the difference you've made in that person's life in the last 2 years by letting them know, I can only imagine how blessed they feel.
Well, I am, I think, like you, all about accountability. So I will take that challenge.
All right. I love that you're good. I know you will. I don't even question that. Okay. It's like, and by the way, I was interviewing another one of our dear friends who introduced us, and she is the one, Leah, with the Global Impact. And I have to say, I did my podcast and it aired, and now I have to hold myself accountable, Sam, because I was blown away what I learned about plastic and how bad straws are. So I have to commit to not using straws. So I'm telling you, now it's live. We're committing to each other, and you have, I'm going to hold you to this because I know you'll do it. Well, I just have to ask you, there's another whole arena you're involved in, and that is the United Nations, UN Women. Mm-hmm. Tell us tell us a little bit more about that, because that's something, and I want to tell you, I have a dream, and I'm going to ask you about this dream that I have, and a wish. But sure. Tell me about UN Women. What are you seeing in it? What's the difference they're making from your perspective, and now being one of the 12 members of the advisory group? Yeah.
It's a huge honor. And it comes about because we've been working with the UN for close to 4 years. we hosted our global conference at the UN in 2015. We had done work prior to that together. I have some incredible mentors, Ravi Karkara and others there, who have really guided a lot of the work we do. And they were looking for 12 people from around the world to advise the head of UN Women for the next 2 years, and they reached out and asked me to do it. And my schedule, like most people probably listening, can be pretty busy at times, but this is an honor you could never turn down. And especially for me, the role that they've asked me to play is really thinking through, especially how we bring this next generation into the feminist movement, and in particular, young men. From a personal place, that's something that is really important to me. And through MCN, we've worked with chapters of Girl Up and chapters of She's the First and chapters of different campus-based organizations focused on gender inclusion on a global scale. And so now it's an opportunity just to share my expertise, what I've learned over this decade with youth organizing with UN Women, to ensure they can really build out and protect this feminist movement at a time when, it is under attack all over the world. And working at the UN is a difficult space because, these agencies have a lot of bosses. They've got, a couple hundred member states that are basically their bosses. And as you can imagine, not every country feels the same way about feminism. So it's a difficult, I think, path to navigate. But the fact that this agency was created over 6 years ago, I think it's one of the most important. Just through all the work I've seen and talking to the women in my life, I think feminism is, it's the key. There's no question. It is the key to reduction of poverty, to greater equality, to so many of the things. So many of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals are bound up in this goal around gender inclusion and equality. And so anything I can do towards that goal is it's going to be a huge part of the next 2 years of my life, and honestly, my entire life.
Well, I just feel like speaking as a woman, we are so blessed to have someone like you, a younger man that's passionate and understands the value of women and wanting to just bring everything you can to continue to educate. It's education, it's awareness, and it's sustainability, right? It's like all of these things together. But being a part of that, Sam, I can't even thank you enough. And you just said something that I don't want anyone to miss, because this is funny, as you just dropped something in this message you just shared, that is the wish, when I said I have a dream and I want to share it with you. And that is, you said they want to get more men involved. Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting, Sam. So I'm just going to leave you with this, because I have so loved getting involved with Girl Up and the power to understand how much we can make a difference and how much is needed. These young women that don't count, there's no birth certificates. It's the same for young boys around the world, right? 45 million boys don't have birth certificates. They're not counted. We could rattle off all the statistics. And what I've learned around how important it is to empower young women. And personally, and you probably don't even know this, just in the last month, I actually just personally shared a very dark story of my past that it took me almost 30 years to share this. It was about 29 years ago. And it was because of what I'm experiencing and seeing so much of, that it's not just in other countries, it's here in the United States. Mm-hmm. And I love empowering young women, but where I've struggled, and this is where I'm coming to the wish, is that I said, I have been very fortunate and blessed to have 3 beautiful boys. And I said, what are we doing to empower the young boys? Because if we empower young women, we're only doing half the battle. I want those younger boys, as they come up into this world, to understand the value of being able to say what you just said, right? Like, I believe in women. I want to help. I want to be the champion. I want to help make the difference. And so my dream is, when are we going to have Boy Up or Guy Up or something like that? Because I am on a mission right now, Sam. It's like, we got to get the boys and the young men empowered, right?
Yeah. And to that, there are campaigns, UN Women, Emma Watson has made it famous. The campaign He for She is one that they're pushing out. Todd Minnerson, who's one of the other advisors, with Men Engaged. There are actually, I think, a lot of platforms out there, but I think the challenge is in the message, in really making it inviting to young men. I think I've talked to a lot of my friends, and quite frankly, they're not there, because it means challenging our own privilege. It means unpacking a lot of what we've been conditioned to believe about our own masculinity and who we are. And so we have to be open. And I think that, that's a process. But if we can work together to do that, I would love to. And I think there are enough young men out there who are open. We just have to connect the dots.
Totally. And I love the words and the vernacular you just used. It's the unpacking, some of which is very generational, some of which is very cultural, some of which is good, bad, or indifferent. When I say generational, it's kind of what we've seen and how we've grown up, right? So you're right. It's an unpacking and it's a paradigm shift. I also think that, to your point, we could spend our days trying to pull the horse to water. I'm going to use that cliche, or go where the love is. So the guys that are already, like you just said, and there's so many that do get it, let's start finding more of them. And look at me, I'm already ready to start helping you. You just tell me what I can do to support you, to help you do this, because I'm a mom and I'm on a mission as, empowering women around the world, but I see the value of all of this coming together. So I'm just going to leave that with you. Whatever I can do, you tell me what I can do to support you in that. Okay.
Holly, if your sons are open to it, connect me with them and let's have a conversation and see where it goes.
I would love to. And I took one of my 3 to Girl Up to an event in New York not too long ago, so he could get exposed to it. Because I was like, yeah, so he's all about that. He was actually cornered by some of the advisory board members. Like, would you be interested in talking more about this? We need somebody like you. Right. So Sam, we're on it. We have so many things we're going to do after this call. And I could keep going because you're just brilliant and humble. I hope you know, and anybody that gets to listen to this, the humility that you bring actually makes you even far more brilliant and makes you more of why I know you're being sought after and people want to have you in this capacity as a leader globally. So I can't wait to meet you in person someday. I thank you. And as I wrap this up, I'm going to ask you what I ask a lot of my guests, but I'm going to make a twist to it. I typically will ask somebody to share, if you were to give your 25-year-old self advice based on who you are today, but with you, Sam, look what you were already doing by 25. So I'm going to go to 20. I'm going to use that age. At 20, if you could go back and give your 20-year-old self advice based on who you are and what you've done today, what would that advice be?
Love deeply. I think that served me well in all the relationships that I've had, and personal, professional, and in between, everything. When I've loved people with my whole heart, I think people feel that, they share that back with me. And with that, it feels like anything is possible.
Oh, I love that. What a way to end the celebration of Sam today. Love deeply. And don't be afraid to talk to anyone. Those 2 are going home with me, my friend, forever. Thank you. Thank you
very much, Holly. Thank you.
Oh, it's been an honor. Oh, I can't wait. We're going to connect soon.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining me for another awesome celebration of you. If you were inspired by this story, please share it with your family and friends and hashtag Your Story Matters. I'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment on iTunes. And absolutely, please come to my website, hollydowling.com. Leave a comment there too, and while you're there, pick up your free gift. Most importantly, though, just remember that your life is a gift from God. What you do with it is your gift back.